In the late 70s, my uncle was studying medicine at the University of Chicago. After a morning class, he decided that he would hitchhike back to Lincoln Park on the north side instead of pay for a taxi. A man drove up in a Plymouth Satellite and offered my uncle a ride. The man looked normal and seemed friendly, lighthearted even. So my uncle got in the car and they started driving toward Lakeshore Drive. However, once they got there, the man drove south on Lakeshore instead of north towards Lincoln Park. My uncle told the man he was going the wrong way and to turn around and head north. The man looked at my uncle, put his hand on his knee and said, "No, son, you're coming with me," and smiled darkly at him. My uncle froze in panic, and when they hit traffic near the South Shore, he quickly unlocked the passenger door and ran away without looking back. About a year or two later, on a cold December day, my uncle was having coffee in a cafe with my future aunt when he caught something on the TV that made his blood run cold. He saw the man that picked him up from school that day the year before. He had been arrested for the suspected rape and killing of over 20 young men and boys. The man on the television was John Wayne Gacy, and he had removed the door handle off the passenger side door to prevent the men he picked up from escaping. About 15 years ago, my mom and cousin were coming home from visiting my aunt who lived 2 hours away. The drive takes you through the desert and up some mountains, but there's a shortcut you can take to avoid the mountains and shave about 10 minutes off your drive time. Only problem is, the shortcut takes you literally through the middle of nowhere. It's a 2-lane road with nothing for 30 miles. No houses, no shops, no lights, not even those roadside emergency phone booths. They're driving along through the shortcut at about 11 p.m. when they spot something on the road. At first my cousin thinks it's a rock, so she slows down to go around it. When she gets closer, she realizes it's a lady with long black hair and what looks like a burlap shawl wrapped around her. She's crouched down facing away from my cousin. My mom says that they thought the lady might have been in trouble, so they pull up next to her and ask if she's okay and if she needs help. My cousin says the lady stood up, looked at them, and let out a shriek like a goddamn banshee. She insists her eyes were pitch black and her skin was as white as a sheet. And she was really skinny, like almost anorexic skinny. I debate this because it was dark out and her mind might have been playing tricks on her. But nonetheless, it was enough to spook the hell out of her and made her punch the accelerator and get the hell out of there. The lady briefly ran after them, but they lost sight of her after a short bit. They didn't stop for anything, even running a stop sign, until they got to the next town, where they stopped at a gas station to get something to drink and collect their thoughts. A few weeks later, my cousin was telling her coworker what happened, and she said it might have been a skinwalker she saw, and that she's lucky she got away. That spooked her even worse, and now she won't even go through the shortcut. Even when someone else is driving, she insists on taking the main highway. When I was 17, I didn't have a driver's license. In fact, I was 36 before I did. I walked most places, occasionally catching rides with friends and, less occasionally, hitchhiking. The night in question was one of those seldom seen nights when I decided to hitchhike, having worked late and being too exhausted to walk. Now, most of the time when I hitch a ride, I wouldn't get in the car with a lone man, only women, or rarely men with a wife, girlfriend, or kids in the car. This night though, cars were few and far between, and it was cold. And really, if I'm being perfectly frank, when he pulled over, I took a good look and figured I could take him if he tried anything. He was on the slender side and had a strange frailness about him, even though he looked healthy enough. I got into the car after we agreed on a destination. We exchanged names and I warmed my fingers in front of the heating vent. He spoke quietly, asking a few questions along the lines of, was I local, and how did I like living there? He said he'd only been there for a couple of months, but found it beautiful and hoped he could find happiness there. That comment struck me as a little odd, but I brushed it off. It began to snow and the road quickly got slippery, so he slowed and kept his eyes straight on the windshield, driving silently. I was okay with that, as small talk was never my forte. About 10 minutes later, I noticed a car near the intersection we were approaching seemed to be sliding, so I said, "Watch out!" He immediately hit the gas, shooting through the intersection, and burst out with, "Don't ever scream at me." Needless to say, I was taken aback. I said, "Look, this is close enough, just pull over here and I can get there." He didn't seem to hear me. Richard? Did you hear me? I said he could pull over here and let me out. No response. He just stared straight ahead, driving faster now than he had been since it began to snow. To say I was scared doesn't seem to cover the depth of the fear that began to arise in me. I didn't know if I should stay quiet or speak out, but I was damn sure not going to yell at him after his outburst. After about a mile, he began to mumble under his breath. I couldn't quite make out what he was saying, but I assumed he was speaking to me, so I said, I couldn't hear you." He began to speak, quietly and rapidly, saying things like, "You're always yelling at me. I told you time and time again, I do not appreciate being yelled at. But do you listen? No. Well, I'm done listening to you now. Do you hear that?" I was at a complete loss. I didn't know what to say in response or if I should say anything at all. I contemplated just jumping out of the car, but nixed that idea when I realized the door lock was missing. There was just a silver-lined hole where it should have been. I'd started to cry and debate with myself about causing an accident by grabbing the wheel and hoping for the best. At least, I figured there was a chance I'd survive that. When he suddenly looked at me for the first time since I had gotten into the car. He blinked several times rapidly, then slowed the car, pulling into a gas station. I waited to see if he'd unlock the doors, not wanting to say anything to set him off again. After a minute or two, he quietly said, "I think I better let you out here," and hit the button to open the door locks. I wasn't about to hesitate. I jumped out of the car as if it were on fire. I was about to turn and walk into the gas station when he called my name. He looked so damn sad, I hesitated. He apologized, said he was sorry if he'd frightened me, that he would never have harmed me, and asked if I'd be able to get home okay. I said I would and closed the door. He began to pull out of the gas station lot, but stopped suddenly. He just sat there for a couple of moments, his head down. I froze, wondering what the hell he was up to, and was about to run into the gas station, but he opened his window and yelled to me, waving something in his hand. My hat. I left it in his seat. I warily approached his side of the car, and he handed it to me, apologizing again. I didn't know what else to say, so I just said, "Thanks." I watched as he drove off, making sure he was out of sight before moving on, so he wouldn't know which direction I was heading. I decided to go to a friend's house instead of home. As I walked, I went to put my hat back on and out fell a piece of paper. Folded into the paper was a $100 bill. The paper said, "I'm sorry. Please take a cab and don't hitchhike anymore tonight." I didn't. In fact, it was the last time I ever hitched a ride alone.